Look at it. What's up, guys? I'm doing another video, and today I've done it again. I've bought myself another car that I can't really, afford or have the time to actually fix. But here it is because I wanted it really badly. So this is my new 94 Paseo. I still have the red Paseo. This is just an addition. This is a 5-speed manual that I've wanted. It has a sunroof that I wanted, and it has cruise control from the factory. This car has about 168,000 miles on it, and here's the good things and the bad things about it. So start off with the bad. It has a few dents. It's an old car. It has quite a large one here. It has one here and like several other little ones here. It has a crease in the door, and it has that big one in the hood right there where it looks like someone set a wrench down on top of the engine and shut the hood and dented it. The other downside to the car is that it needs two CV shafts. It needs possibly a wheel bearing. It needs to get new wheels and tires because I don't like the wheels on this, and the tires make a lot of noise. The tint needs to be completely scraped off and removed and redone because it looks terrible. There's a tear in the seat. The dash has the original paint peeling off of it. The boot is dry rotted and torn. The interior is pretty disgusting. When I bought the car, I'm pretty sure it was left outside with the windows down, and the result of that was tons and tons of dirt and lots of staining. But this is to a point where I can actually live with this and drive it and not be disgusted. This car definitely needs a full 100% clean and detail because this is still not to the point where I'd like it to be. Like I said, it's okay for driving on a regular basis, but to me, it's still dirty. You can see the dirt inside the door jambs. You can see the air vents are full of dirt. You saw the stains in the back seat. It definitely needs a lot of work. If you follow my Instagram, which is @JustToyotas, you can see what the interior looked like prior to cleaning, and it was a true disaster. When I got the car, the bottom panel here was off. All the wires have been pulled out. They messed with the fuse block at some point, and there's a lot of dirt, a lot of trash and everything inside the interior of this car. So it needs interior work. I have this piece here. All the pieces that were taken off came with the car, but they had been taken off, so now it's just sort of piecing it back together in the correct way. But for the most part, the interior is actually okay. It just really needs a good clean. And of course, this is going to have to be fixed because this really bothers me. But anyway, let's continue around the car. So let's continue this in the engine compartment here. So this car has brand new plug wires that are bad and need to be replaced. It needs a new valve down here because you can see that valve is broken. It's a vacuum valve. It's broken and is being taped off so that it doesn't have a vacuum leak, and the line that's supposed to go there is just straight jumped from the intake manifold to the charcoal canister back there, because that's what that valve does. Is the valve opens and closes depending on something, I don't know. That valve opens and closes to allow vacuum to the charcoal canister, and without that valve there, or with the vacuum line broken off, you have to bypass it by just running it straight across. So that means it doesn't idle quite great when it's cold. I don't know if that's the only factor that causes it not to idle great when it's cold, but I know that's one of the factors. When I got the car, the fuse block was pulled out of it, and there is a wire somewhere in here. There it is. This wire here, this very large wire, has been cut and spliced. Or it's been cut and needs to be spliced together with the remainder of the wire, which is somewhere, and I don't know where. And that wire goes to the AC condenser, the AC condenser fan. So that means this car has no AC at the moment. And I don't know if it actually has working AC because I can't turn it on because that fan doesn't work, and I don't want to cause the car to overheat. And that leads to the next thing. I bought this car for $300 because It had a completely 100% blown engine. Catastrophic engine failure due to overheating. Just like my red Paseo overheated, and I did a head gasket on it. This car was beyond a head gasket job. This had a cylinder head warped so bad that there was no way to possibly heat straighten it or cut it or anything to make it flat. It needed to be thrown away and have a new cylinder head replaced. So I went to the only Paseo I could find in the entire state of Arizona in the junkyard and got a cylinder head off of that car. So this is that cylinder head. But the original block, which you can't really see there, but that is the numbers matching block to this car. I was able to salvage the block and salvage the pistons from it because it didn't score the cylinders. I honed the cylinders, I put new rings on it, put it back together, a full new gasket kit, and this car doesn't leak any oil whatsoever. It doesn't leak anything. I don't want to jinx it, but it's doing absolutely fantastic now. I had to rebuild the entire engine in this car, but I must have done something right because it doesn't leak anything. It's an excellent little car. The one downside is that it rides very, very rough, and I contribute some of that to the tires, and I contribute the other part of that to the fact that this strut over here is completely seized up. It's not completely seized up, but it's pretty much locked in position, and I can show you what I mean. If I push on this side of the car, you can see that the suspension compresses as it should, and it also wobbles quite a bit, so it needs new struts in the front anyway. This side barely compresses at all. So that means that this car needs 2 new struts because that one doesn't support the weight of the car. When you hit a bump, it still goes up and down when it should settle out very quickly. And that one's almost 100% locked in place. That's pretty much all the negatives though. The pros to this car is, as a brand new engine, pretty much brand new because it's been 100% rebuilt. It has only 168,000 miles on it. It's white and has no major body damage. And this white paint has been restored to just beautiful reflection. There's no major body damage. Aside from the 3 large dents on it, there's no major body damage, and this is 100% the original paint. It needs some touching up back here. It's not perfect. It needs some touching up, but this is a very, very nice car, and I apologize for the wind, but this is just the day that I happen to have time to record. This car, unfortunately, does need, possibly, it needs a brake master cylinder because sometimes the pedal goes a little soft, and sometimes it's normal feeling, so it could be a brake master cylinder, or it could be the fact that it does actually need new brakes because the brakes do make a lot of noise. This car was sitting for probably about 2 years, and the rotor's rusted and the pads glazed, so it stops quickly. It stops quickly enough, and it, stops that you can drive it and it's not sketchy to drive, but it makes a lot of noise when you hit the brakes, and it just needs new ones. I need to do something about this battery tie down because it has been corroded, and this is a discontinued part from Toyota. And whereas I could just get a generic battery tie down, this coolant reservoir actually bolts onto the battery bracket because this is a cruise control car. In my red Paseo, the coolant reservoir sits right here, but because this car has cruise control, it sits there and doesn't allow the coolant reservoir to go anywhere, so that's where it sits. So I'm gonna have to figure out something to do with the battery bracket because I want to restore this car. And I know that sounds crazy, but I really want to restore this car. I spent a lot of time rebuilding the engine. I spent a lot of time cleaning up the harness and rewrapping it and everything to make it look nice. I cleaned up the engine bay and everything. I still need to touch it up, obviously, because it has gotten dirty in putting the engine in and everything. It needs a good detail, but this is possibly one of the cleanest Paseos to exist. It doesn't leak anything. It runs perfectly. It drives very nicely. The ride is not great because, like I said, the shocks are trashed, but it has original paint. It has the original interior that needs a little bit of work, maybe a medium amount of work because, as you saw. But really, this is actually a very nice car. I like to see potential in cars where other people don't. and that allowed me to get this car for $300. Plus I needed to put a lot of time into it, obviously, but once that time was there, it's actually a very nice car. This is actually nicer than my red Paseo. And it's really cool because this is actually, you know, it's a dream car of mine. I wanted a Paseo for a long time. I bought my red one because I wanted one for a long time, but I've always wanted a manual Paseo. I've always wanted a manual. And here it is. And to have a sunroof and have cruise control is amazing. So I think I should tell you guys the story of how this car actually came to be. So I was sitting in class one day and I was just browsing around on OfferUp, as I do, you know, Craigslist, OfferUp, that kind of stuff. And this car was for sale for like $400 or $500 or something like that. And it was all the way out in like closer to Wickenburg, Arizona, which is 4+ hours from where I am, but about an hour away from the school that I'm going to. And I was looking this up while I was in school, and I showed it to my teacher. I said, "Hey, look at this Paseo." And he saw it and he decided, I'm gonna go get that car, because he thought he could rebuild the engine and flip it in, you know, make some money off of it. I told him that if he bought that car and he brought it to school, I would very likely buy it from him, because I knew it was a 5-speed car, but I couldn't tell that it had a sunroof. I didn't know it had cruise control. I didn't know it had any of that. So I told him, if he buys that car, I'm probably gonna have to buy it off of him. And he just laughed. Well, next thing I know, a few days later, here my teacher comes pulling into the school with his T100 and this Paseo on the back of a U-Haul dolly. He bought the car for somewhere around $200 and towed it to the school. So I told him I would buy the car for $300 to make his money back, and, you know, then some for actually getting the car to the school. And that's when I took over. The car had zero compression of any kind, wouldn't start, wouldn't run, wouldn't do anything. So all it would do was crank over, and it didn't have a battery with it, so it took a jump box to make it crank over. Many hours, many parts, and a bunch of time, and a lot of questions, and a lot of asking for help from my teachers, and I got this car to run literally 2 days before I had to drive the car home because the semester of school was ending. Rebuilt it, and literally 2 days, or the very next day, I think it was the very next day actually, I got in this car and drove it 250 miles back home. And it did fine, which is amazing. Number one, that I rebuilt an engine and immediately hopped on the freeway and it did just fine. But also the fact that it's the coolest thing ever to have rebuilt this car and to have driven it home. So I don't know, it's just really special to me that I got to do that. This car definitely needs a lot of work. It definitely still needs a lot of time and hours and money put into it. But this is really something that I've wanted. I've really liked this car a lot. I really do. And it's going to be cool to see it progress on the channel. But anyways, guys, that's going to do it for this video. I hope you enjoyed this. Tell me what you think of the Paseo down in the comments below. I know a lot of you loved the red Paseo when I bought it. I love the red Paseo still. I'm never getting rid of either of these cars. I love them both, and they're just fun little great cars. So anyways, guys, thanks for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed. Press that like button and consider subscribing if you're new, and I'll see you in the next video. Have a good day. Bye.